Welcome to Walking with J.Beau, an almost daily walking vlog on a beautiful sunny Maine day with not a cloud in the sky. Again, we have seen many days like this, and unfortunately Maine has just been officially entered into severe drought. So Maine is the driest it has probably been in my lifetime, and I'm 57. So this is something pretty serious. So kind of a big deal. I'm really hoping no kind of forest fires break out, because if they do, it's going to be pretty devastating for the state. I kind of fear that, actually. As somebody that walks in the woods often, they absolutely do zero forest floor mitigation here to prevent forest fires. Some parts of the state have hundreds of years worth of pine needles and brush buildup out in the woods. It would go up like, it would be unbelievable. So this is that crazy liberal car again. Let me get on here. Oh, all right. So it would be really horrible, the damage done here, and it's something that concerns me. So I got a few things to talk about today. We got plenty of topics. I got one I'm going to save for up ahead, but right now I'm going to start off with RFK Jr., who people are calling for RFK Jr. to resign. And I got to see if my doggy friend over here is going to come out and bark at me or not. I'll be back with you in a moment. It's not out here today. So RFK Jr. has been changing vaccine policies, and you knew this was going to happen, because he was going to come in and do his job. He's trying to restore faith in the CDC that people have lost faith in, or trust, I should say. And so, oh, there's a squirrel. Run, little squirrel. So they are making a fuss, saying that RFK Jr. is not trusting the science. 1,000 CDC workers submitted together a letter calling for RFK Jr. to resign because he's creating chaos in the agency, when actually what you are hearing them doing is they are fighting to keep the inefficiency and misinformation that they spread during COVID. I am never going to forgive the CDC for the hell that they put people through during COVID. They're the ones that recommended mandatory vaccinations for workers, healthcare workers, military. These people are ideologues. They're the lunatics. And I have a feeling RFK Jr. is not going anywhere. In fact, I would fire those people that did that. That's what I would do. We got to get tough with this. They're trying to get public opinion to get rid of RFK Jr. And the Democrats were raising unholy hell today in a hearing, 3.5 hours long, with RFK Jr. And this is what they're going to do. This is what the swamp does. They want to keep their swamp. So I'm going to ignore them. We know what the CDC did during COVID, and we know why we support RFK Jr. So we get some guys there throwing the football around, which is awesome. Anyway, we're going to go for our walk today. RFK Jr. is heading a study committee. They're coming up with the causes of autism, and I got a feeling a lot of these people sitting in office are not going to like what he has to say, because they're all taking money from Big Pharma, and lobbyists have lobbied for these politicians to not support anti-vaccination policies. And this is the swamp. This is exactly what we're watching. So you need to remove yourself from the entire vaccine issue as an issue and understand what this really is, which is the powerful Big Pharma lobby in Washington, D.C., trying to prevent and banning vaccinations of certain types. But this is what we voted for. RFK Jr. is tough. He can take it. And I'm sure Trump's not going to fire him. So, c'est la vie. You need to understand that these tactics don't work anymore because they have overused them. We've seen this before. So, the other issue I want to talk about, and it needs to be talked about, is these mass shootings where transgender people are committing them. I agree something has to be done about that. But, and there is a but, we should not be just across the board, if you're trans, you can't own a gun. That's a no-no. That is a big no support from me. So, you know, they used to say people that were gay were mentally ill for the longest time, 50s and 60s. And some people were actually committed for it, especially in Canada. In Britain, it was illegal. In the UK, if you were gay, you'd be arrested. It was a crime. So now, because it's an easy target, trans people because there's quite a few people in the country that don't even like that to begin with. The Department of Justice right now, according to reporting done by the Daily Caller, which I trust, an inside source, a single source inside the DOJ, which is anonymous, and you know how much I don't like anonymous sources. People should put their name on it. Has stated that the DOJ is currently drafting or coming up with a policy that trans people will not be able to buy firearms due to mental illness. Now, that seems like a popular thing right now, but I'm going to tell you why it's not a thing we should do. One, the only way I would support that is if it was done like a yellow flag law, where somebody has demonstrated to a healthcare professional or law enforcement has visited an address and they feel that this person is dangerous, and they go to a court and petition a judge to temporarily take somebody's guns until they are stable again or are proven stable. And if that never happens, then they never get guns. But the Second Amendment, in my opinion, is absolute. The Democrats say it's not. They say it can be changed. So why would Republicans want to hurry up and help Democrats with banning guns? And you're probably thinking, well, how is that so? Well, if you're going to make it a legal precedent where it's okay to ban guns because somebody is trans, then now you can ban it for people that are domestic terrorists, people that are depressed, former law enforcement who suffer from post-traumatic stress disorder, former military with the same thing, anorexics, people with severe eating disorders. It's mental illness. So where does this stop? What happens when the Democrats are in power? Will the Republicans have given the Democrats what they finally need to ban guns for everybody by supporting this stupidity? Real questions to think about as we look at this garden and that guy that is always dressed head to toe. I think that guy has a skin disease or severe burns. He's dressed like that even when it's 95 degrees. So basically, my friends, we need to be very careful. Now, if you watch these walks, you know that I support yellow flag laws, because banning somebody from buying a firearm because they're trans and may shoot up a school, even if you take all the numbers of trans people that own firearms, which is a lot, the percentage of trans people that commit violence among other trans people is virtually non-existent. You only hear about it because a mass shooting was done. That's like saying, well, black people are always the ones shooting everybody up in Chicago and Los Angeles and So now black people can't have guns. See what I'm saying here? Oh, it's one of those. That figures. You know, you can't think like that. It's wrong. It's just wrong, period. There's no other way to say it. And you know it's wrong. You know it's wrong. You can't have a gun because you're a conservative. You wear a MAGA hat. You're a domestic terrorist. You're violent. January 6th. These guys shouldn't have guns. That's it. No more guns. No more guns for middle-aged white people. They're too dangerous. We can't be that stupid, folks, okay? We can't. And that is stupidity. So this is knee-jerk. This is right against left right now. This is a political thing. It's not using common sense. The transgenderism is a neo-Marxist gender ideology, and that's what everybody's mad at. So be mad at the ideology, which is DEI, gender identity, self-ID, the social contagion of transsexualism, not transsexualism, but transgenderism. Those are two different things. So if you label gender dysphoria as a mental illness that bans people from buying firearms, then you might as well say all trans people can't own firearms. Number one, it's unconstitutional. It's never going to happen, okay? It's not going to happen, for one thing. It's going to have to be a yellow flag type thing. And I don't want to see Republicans supporting red flag laws, which is what that would be, under the guise of hating transgenders. Don't fall into that trap. They do it to them, they're going to do it to anyone, especially when Democrats come into full power. And like I just said, stated for whatever reason, you're a threat. You can no longer have firearms. You voted for Donald Trump. So no, legally they can't do that. So that tells me that there has to be some kind of loophole having to do with mental illness, diagnosed mental illness. But they can't say anyone diagnosed with gender dysphoria cannot own a firearm, because people are not going to go get the mental health help they need. They're going to keep it a secret. Then you're going to have gun stores refusing to sell to anyone that comes in that's a male but wearing a dress, which constitutionally, whether you like it or not, has a right to do that. I was told the Republican Party was the party of live and let live, meaning you don't punish anyone unless they've done something to deserve that. Now, whatever Republican I voted for, I did not vote for that. Because like I said, you might as well be saying, well, black people do most of the mass shootings according to the FBI, which is true. Black people shouldn't have guns. No more guns for black people. It's the same thing. There's really no way you can finagle that to be okay for one and not the other. We don't do that, guys. Sorry, but we don't. I'm sorry people end up getting killed, but it's not the gun's fault. And it's the fault of the person doing it. I have a perfect solution that solves all of this. Okay, you ready? Are you ready for this? How about if we ban transitioning of fucking minors, okay? I don't mean fucking minors, I mean banning the transition of minors. I mean that metaphorically, not effing minors, okay? How about if we just ban the transition of minors? Okay? How about if we just do that? All of these mass shooters, all of them too, all of them, you can research it, that were trans, were number one, they were indoctrinated when they were teenagers or younger than teenagers. Number two, they were on psych medications or had mental health problems that transitioning did not solve, because that's supposed to solve these problems for them. So they stop being nihilistic, hurting themselves, self-harm, cutting themselves. It's a popular thing among young people with mental issues. That didn't exist when I was a kid. So we have a mental health problem in this country. Not a trans problem with people trans with guns. We have a mental health problem. So what I'm saying is, make it, number one, illegal to transition minors. Number two, stop indoctrinating young people with transgender ideology in schools, workplaces, institutions. That's what's causing this. They're being indoctrinated, okay? And they're not thinking straight because they have mental issues. But if they weren't transitioning as minors, they wouldn't be upset about it when they became adults and decide to take it out on a school full of Christians. Kids. There's a little girl named Melissa right now, still fighting for her life. She got shot by this guy. She's still in very serious condition with serious injuries, which she may never recover from. I don't know what the injuries are. Head wound could be mentally impaired for life, physically mutilated. Maybe part of her face is gone. I don't know what happened. This is very serious, and we need serious solutions, okay? Banning trans people from owning firearms isn't going to solve the problem, because they're just going to buy a gun illegally. In fact, some of the mass shootings that have happened from trans people that didn't own the firearms that they used. They took them from family members or friends of the family, or they broke in somewhere and stole them. So if they want to do this, they're going to do this, okay? And if not with a firearm, they're going to get a U-Haul truck and drive through a playground of kids. So this is like solving the drug problem by giving addicts free needles. You know, the government, Democrats, okay, they give away these free syringes to stop the spread of disease and whatever, but it's not curing anybody from being on drugs. You're actually helping them. So, you know, and this is important stuff for us to talk about. This is very important. All right? I mean, I know nothing I've said doesn't make sense. It's common sense. It has to be. I just know we cannot turn into the fascists, because the Democrats are going to use this on us later. That's That's blatantly obvious, okay? We know they're going to use, whatever we do, they're going to use against us later. Well, it was okay with these guys. People that are depressed, clinically depressed, oh sorry, no firearms for you. This is the premise behind the 72-hour waiting period, by the way, which they have in Florida. I see all these people from Florida bragging about their gun rights they have. They can't open carry without a permit. I mean, let me rephrase that. For the longest time, they could not conceal carry without a permit, and you couldn't open carry. And I think you still can't open carry. At a 72-hour waiting period, when you buy a gun, which they have here in Maine also, but that is still under the legal battle. I got a feeling that's going to be gone in all states, because eventually it's a Supreme Court issue that's going to determine that somebody that's never owned a firearm before and they need it for protection because there's a threat, which is what the Second Amendment's for, can't just go buy a firearm, or they can't borrow a shotgun from a neighbor to protect themselves without breaking the law. So that leaves people vulnerable and susceptible to being harmed, and they have a Second Amendment right to protect themselves from being harmed. So, this stuff can all be very dangerous. Very dangerous. We can never support anything like that. It doesn't matter who it's against. You don't like trans people and you think they're freaks and they're sinners and they're going to go to hell, well, that's fine. But it doesn't mean they can't own a gun. That's all I'm saying. And you know I'm right on that. The Second Amendment is equal in weight to the First Amendment. And I've used this analogy on past walks, but 2020, we saw half the country burn down. So what did we do? Ban protesting? Because people got hurt and lost their businesses? I mean, is that what we're going to do now? Or you're going to need a permit to protest? And you're going to need a psychological evaluation to get that permit to make sure you're not going to be causing a riot? Is that really where we're going to go? Because that's what they do in Europe. We left Europe because of shit like that. Can't do that, guys. Can never support that. And if you disagree with what I'm saying, that's fine. You're entitled to that. You're wrong. But free speech means free speech. Free speech means people are going to say some things that you don't like. And we're seeing the dangers of that right now in Europe and the UK specifically. Past week or two, 30 people in the UK, specifically Britain, have been arrested for posts that they made online, including a comedy writer, which is pretty well known in England. He was so upset about it, he needed medical care. This is an infringement even on their rights, okay? British people don't have the Constitution, they don't have the First Amendment, but they do have something similar to a Bill of Rights, where you have a right to express your discontent with the government, okay? So, they got arrested for hate speech. Now, this is the kind of thing that's like ban guns for trans people. So Democrats could say, well, all this hateful rhetoric towards the government, or all this hateful rhetoric towards trans people, causes them to do this. So now we're going to start arresting you for speaking up against trans people. You start screaming about trans people should not have guns because they're mentally ill. Well, that's hate speech. You're going to go to court. You're going to go to jail for that. So this comedian was arrested as soon as he got into the airport in England. Flying back from, I think he was flying back from America. And he's a pretty well-known comedy writer. I don't know his name, but it doesn't matter. He said that we have women being raped in Britain, migrants, pedophiles, and other people not being charged or getting light sentences. And he goes, I have 5 armed policemen show up at an airport to arrest somebody that writes jokes. And that speaks for itself, doesn't it? And I'll tell you something else, and this is very important to remember, and I want you to always remember this. The bad guys in history were always the ones to censor their people. Every single one of them. The good guys in history are not. So if you want to side with the Hitlers, Mussolinis, Stalins, Chairman Mao's, or whoever else, then you feel free to do that. But you're not an American like I am. It's wrong, period. There's no pro-argument for it. And I guess that's it. So anyway, I'm gonna turn the camera around, change the subject, but that's a big one I wanted to talk about because it's important. That affects everybody. You know, if I was in charge of things like that, I'd be like, well, you can't buy an electric guitar if you play rap music. Kind of a joke there, sorry. This is a nice stretch right here. Look at this. Shadows are getting long, makes good lighting. Anyway, we can't get crazy with this stuff. And I gotta tell you right now, Pam Bondi in Florida has kind of, she wanted red flag laws in Florida, okay, when she was the Attorney General there. And she is somewhat of an anti-gun person. And to hear her specifically, head of the AG for Trump, tossing around an idea like that raises the hair on the back of my neck, because that is the one thing that she did in Florida that I did not get on board with. Ban the transitioning of children and indoctrination of young people, and this will end. But poor RFK Jr. today got raked across the coals. I'm waiting to see the dust settle and see how that shakes out. It's amazing how Democrats are fighting so hard to keep their vaccines. Why would that be? Well, it's money. It's big pharma. Money, money, money. It always comes down to money. So 3 Republican senators were not kind to Kennedy today. Tillis, who has announced he's not running for re-election because Trump said he should be primaried, and he went against Trump, so he decided to resign instead. And there's a couple other ones. One of them was Cassidy, who I believe is also not running again. So you got 2 guys not running again who decided to stand up against Trump. So I wouldn't even give them 2 grains of salt. CNN's going to have fun saying, oh, even Republicans don't support him. But technical details matter. They are Republicans not running for re-election, and they don't like Trump. So, not a shocker there. A new poll just came out, though. President Trump is more popular than he was 2 months ago, when he was the most popular he's ever been. So he's gone up in points again. I think it has to do with more Epstein information coming out. And I thought it was interesting that NBC tried to get these victims to admit Donald Trump did some sort of criminal activity, and they all said he didn't. So they're also going to comprise a list of clients that they witnessed, which are going to be hearsay. Okay, it is going to be hearsay. Just because it's a victim saying it doesn't mean it's true. And I'll give you a perfect example of that. One of these girls accused Alan Dershowitz, not one of the ones that testified yesterday or gave a speech, but one of the women had accused Alan Dershowitz of improprieties. They filed a lawsuit against Alan Dershowitz for damages, a civil suit, not a criminal one. And they ended up dropping their suit because the girl said, I think I misidentified him. It was somebody that looked like him. And it was a long time ago, yada, yada, yada. So they dismissed it. Now, Alan Dershowitz could have countersued and charged her with all the court fees and all that stuff. Because if you file a suit against someone and it turns out to be false, you have to pay the legal costs. So the legal cost of that person plus the court time that was wasted, you get a responsibility of that. So you can't just sue people unless you actually have a case. So she dropped it, and Alan Dershowitz was graceful about it and didn't ruin her financially, and he could have. So I don't know what kind of conversation they had in private, if they even did. But I'm just saying, another thing that happens is sometimes people remember things different because they were mentally harmed by it. Now, I'm not saying don't believe these women when they say it. What I'm saying is trust but verify. We could have a list read by Marjorie Taylor Greene on the floor, which she promised she would do. She said she is going to read this list that these victims claim these people had sex with them. Right on the floor in Congress for the whole world to hear. Problem is, they are all afraid of these people going after them because they're rich and powerful, and they will ruin you. They will file a lawsuit against you, bankrupt you. Period. Ruin your name, and good luck countersuing, you know. They're just going to have the world's best lawyers, and believe me, they'll spend $1 million to defend themselves, and it won't really cost them anything. You, on the other hand, aren't going to have 10 cents. So that's the way that is. And the other thing with that is, I watched some of that press conference. One of the women speaking was one of the victims of Epstein, who was actually hired by Epstein and Ghislaine Maxwell to recruit young people into that. She was paid $200 per person that she could get. So she sold these people into that. And she was speaking today like she was, yesterday, like she was a victim. And that really bothered me. You know, she got paid to help do that. And now she's advocating for the people that she paid and tricked them into this. Very strange. And then the other red flag I saw, Gloria Allred was there. The same Gloria Allred, ambulance chaser, who marched out 30 plus accusers that Trump supposedly sexually assaulted by grabbing them in the coochie. She's an opportunist. 2 of the accusers turned out to be false. They later recanted it. They made it up because they were trying to get notoriety and make some money. So there was an Epstein fund. I talked about an Epstein fund in the last walk, and I need to clarify what I talked about. And like always, I'll tell you, I don't know everything when I'm talking about it. I'm just somebody giving an opinion, like if you're sitting with them at a coffee shop. Okay? That's all I am. I'm not an expert in very much. So I had mentioned that there was an Epstein fund for victims. So you get a lot of people that come out, try to grift, get some money. Another thing I found interesting at this press conference yesterday was one of the victims was a man. Some guy who claims that he was sexually abused also, which is probably the case, you know. A lot of rich, powerful people like cute young men, or boys, you know what I mean? So this person's an adult now, and he claims he's a victim. So what I'm going to say is trust but verify. I'm not going to say victims are making things up, and I'm not going to say they're not making things up. I'm going to say listen to what they have to say, trust but verify. Don't just blindly trust. Everybody remembers the Me Too movement. Believe her. If she says it, it happened. That's the same neo-Marxist bullshit, like, if they say they're a woman, they're a woman. No, can't be. Sex can't be changed. So, somebody that's Me Too saying so-and-so raped me, well, you better have evidence to back that up. You can't just say it, and it's true. Follow what I'm saying? So Me Too was kind of a precursor to the other stuff they were doing. And the Me Too movement took root because of Trump. Then we had Judge Kavanaugh hearing. Me Too, Me Too. Remember Blasey Ford? She was a liar. She made that up. I don't have proof of that. That's just my opinion. So I'm not defaming her. It's my opinion, and I have one. So I'm not emphatically saying that she's lying, okay? that would be defamation. It's a good example of it. In my opinion, she's lying. Because she doesn't remember where, she doesn't remember what the date was. She didn't really remember anything other than, I know it's him. So that could be one of those things where maybe she was really drunk, messed up, and it was actually somebody else that she thinks was Kavanaugh, and it wasn't. So then we had Kavanaugh's yearbook leaked, where he wrote stuff about liking beer. What a circus that was. A very big moment of embarrassment for the Democratic Party, specifically Kamala Harris and Senator Booker, who were actually just using delay tactics in the Senate to cause problems and to try to delay that confirmation or get it canceled. So anyway, it's one of those things. And you know, I don't know what else to tell you about that other than they like to turn everything into a circus. The American public caught on to that, but I'm seeing them trying to do that again with RFK Jr. now. And it's not going to work because that stuff doesn't work anymore. Argue what Kennedy is saying. Make an argument against what he's saying. Some of the CDC facts are wrong. They're using biased, paid-for university studies to make decisions for the country because of all the money involved, the elitism, the far-left extremism, woke politics behind them. And he's ignoring it, and it's pissing them off. And they're trying to get rid of him, just like they tried to get rid of Trump. So this is just a testament on how big a name Kennedy is and how important he is to the future of this country, because I am like millions of other Americans. Now, CNN can come on and lie about RFK Jr. is destroying the credibility of the CDC right now, which is laughable, when the CDC did that during COVID. I came out of COVID never trusting the FDA or the CDC with anything they said. And I have said that on past walks. We could have a legitimate virus and they could come out and say, actually have good advice, and I'll ignore them. I won't even listen to them. I will go find out how good their advice would have been on my own. I trust what I find and I research. And a lot of these people online are, well, then where do you get your news? If you don't get your news from CNN or MSNBC or CBS or ABC or NBC, where do you get your news? It's called reading. Read stuff, dumbass. Read the people that lie to you and look at what they're saying. Analyze the article. Every single one of these propagandist articles, this is the article, first part of the article, first paragraph. That is the political talking point of the day. They want you to see that first if you're still one of the few that clicked on the link to even read it, okay? 80% don't even do that on social media. So they come up with a headline for the article that's a grabber, an attention grabber. Perfect example is what I just talked about with the DOJ coming up with a trans gun ban. The headline of the article will be, DOJ proposes banning guns from gays or LGBT. They'll say LGBT to include everybody else. Or it will just say transgender. Doesn't matter, whatever it is. They don't give you the whole truth in the article title. They put something in there to grab your attention, so you see a couple of ads and they make their money. First paragraph of the article is the propaganda. Today, the DOJ proposes anti-transgender gun laws. The idea is based on the rash of transgender shootings and killings, who the most recent ones have mostly been trans people. That's the first paragraph. The second paragraph is, Pam Bondi has a long history of this or that, okay? So they'll do an anti-Pam Bondi thing in the second paragraph. The third paragraph, we'll talk about how there may be some argument to this, but there's also another side to it, and they could be wrong. And here's why. And they'll have something there, some study done, or they'll handpick a study that promotes their agenda. And then the very last paragraph is where the truth is. The last paragraph will tell you the person who leaked this is anonymous, and they assert that, all right, how should I word this? Because this is really what happened. That, all right, trans person will not be able to get a firearm. It will be banned for a time where they are deemed unstable and mentally unhealthy, for that period of time that they're not doing well, basically, is what they're saying. So when you get down to the bottom of the article, it's actually saying that the DOJ wants to institute a red flag type law where, because they're trans, they're going to face extra scrutiny, and they're going to have to prove that they are mentally able to own a firearm and they're stable. And if they should prove that they're not stable, they cannot have a firearm. Now, that's a red flag law. I would like to see the last part of that and just have a yellow flag law, where law enforcement or a healthcare professional, mental health, can petition a court with law enforcement to temporarily remove somebody's firearms. That's what I want to see. But the whole point is they like to say, where do you get your news? I get it from everywhere. The reason why I know Trump said a certain thing isn't because I watch Fox News, it's because I watch Trump's speech. I'm not a stupid person. I know what somebody says when they say it. I don't need a reporter on TV to tell me what I heard. Follow what I'm saying? Now, a lot of people rely on the media to be honest. And even Fox News sometimes gives you half-truths or half-stories to fit a narrative. So, I guarantee you're not going to see Jesse Waters on Fox News saying that trans people should be allowed to have guns, but they should only be taken if there's some kind of mental problem. If he comes out and says something like that, well, God bless him, but it's Fox News, he's not going to do that. He's going to promote banning guns from crazy people, and that includes trans people. So, you need to differentiate and not really trust anything you're listening to, and rely more on what you research yourself. I can tell you right now, the amount of mass shootings that happen for the amount of people that own guns is so small and minuscule. It's less than 1% of gun owners that do crazy things with guns. And they want to ban guns for everybody. I could never support that. But I suppose the funny thing out of this whole thing, if you think about it, we're actually going to see Democrats and liberals defend the Second Amendment and gun rights because Pam Bondi wants to ban guns from trans people. Can you imagine? I think we're actually going to see Democrats defend gun rights. Wow! Anything the Republicans do, we have to do the opposite. And it's always Trump's fault. So, you know, that really pisses me off too, as I saw Gavin Newsom recently. And making social media commentary like, you know, making fun of people, mocking Christians for saying thoughts and prayers after the Christian kids were killed. Which means he has a total lack of understanding about Christianity to begin with. So then, when he was criticized for it, he went and found 2 Bible passages that talk about people falsely using religion as a defense. That really made me angry, personally, as a Christian. Gavin Newsom is now on my permanent forever shit list. Mocking Christians. God shall not be mocked, period. And I don't even think he's the one that made the post on his profile. I think that was an intern that does all that stuff. I think it's the same people that were running the Kamala campaign. They're trying to be fresh, hip, and young, which is basically just being a wise ass to everything, because that's what young people do. And he's not gaining any ground with it. He's pissing people off with it. They just don't get it. They just don't get it. It didn't work for Kamala. It's not going to work for Gavin Newsom. And Pritzker's doing the same thing. They all think imitating Trump is going to make them like Trump. Don't even understand the logic there. That's like saying if somebody imitates Hitler, they're going to be like Hitler was. Or if they imitate Gandhi, they're going to be like Gandhi was. I mean, you can't replicate. Can't replicate that. That comes from within. And the truth of the matter is, Gavin Newsom is a chameleon that says whatever he needs to, politically. He can't even admit to his own voters that he owns a big vineyard and he's mega rich. If you want to act like Donald Trump, then brag about what you own. And say, in this country, you can own this too. Vote for me and I'll help you get it. Doesn't that work? Why do you have to hide it? Like you're ashamed. Because socialism is distributing wealth distribution. And if you're rich, you're guilty. What you have belongs to the people because you stole it from them. Capitalism is wrong. So he's a coward. Gavin Newsom is a friggin' coward. That's what he is. So he's never going to be anything. California politics only works in California. It's not going to work here or anywhere else or nationally. I said that a long time ago. Anybody that's California is never going to be president. Kamala Harris is the closest they came, and that wasn't close. So she lost in a lopsided fashion. Yeah, look at this out here. Isn't this beautiful? Isn't this great? I got fresh air, sunshine. I I got turkeys out in the straw, and I'm enjoying my life. Sorry, my friends, but this don't get no better than this. Maine is a beautiful place, even in the winter time. A lot of people fear it. It's cold. It's just different, that's all. There are some parts of it that aren't very nice, but it's temporary, and it makes this all the more beautiful and enjoyable. You appreciate it more. So this is all going to be baled hay at some point. I'm wondering why they haven't done it yet. They usually do. They'll usually have these big rolls of bales of hay out here. Maybe it has something to do with we are now officially in a severe drought. So a cigarette butt in this field or an ember from a campfire would probably burn this whole neighborhood down. It's pretty bad right now, folks. So I'm going to urge you to be very careful with things that burn this time of year in Maine until we get past this severe drought, which we are officially in. So I'm going to turn the camera around again. Look what we got right in front of us. Turkeys in the straw. Do you see that? Now, call me kooky, but, and I've mentioned this before, we see grown men in camouflage sitting up in a roost, perch, with a hunting rifle, like a 20 gauge shotgun, making turkey noises to attract turkeys. And I just walked in to about 14 or 15 turkeys. And if I had a semi-automatic 20 gauge, I would have bagged at least a couple, whatever the limit is. And I know when you're hunting in Maine, you have to limit the magazine tube or how many rounds you have loaded. And I believe, I think you have to use steel shot and not lead. Which means when you're eating the turkey, you might eat a BB if you're not careful. That's what that means. So anyway, we just saw a virtual crap load of turkeys. Now on this camera, the way it films, everything looks 20 to 30 feet away, further away. Well, maybe not that far, maybe 10 or 15 feet further away from you than they really are. Those turkeys were close enough where I actually could have charged them and tried to tackle one. And it's not going to look like that on playback. But, which is why this camera is really good for the shooting range, because you can get the target in frame and everything looks realistic. So, anyways, my friends, we got to see some gobblers. Isn't that cool? Gobble, 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 gobble. So I think we discussed some good things today. Important things that are in the news right now that need to be discussed. I don't know what's going on with Vladimir Putin and Zelensky. I really hope they do, both of them sit down, just them two, and talk. I'm not going to be very hopeful anything will come from that. But, you know, there was an agreement with Putin and Trump to do that. But, you know, I think all Putin is doing, and it's blatantly obvious at this point, and I'm sure Trump knows this, and he's not going to go ahead and put severe sanctions on Russia just yet unless he has to, which will probably be coming soon. But I think what Putin's doing is he's just delaying. He's delaying because he feels like he's going to take a certain amount of Ukraine that will satisfy him before he agrees to any kind of peace thing. And I think he's just trying to delay as much as possible. That's what I think he's doing. I don't think he really has any intention of a peace deal unless it involves Zelensky going to Moscow. So, you know, he can make it look like Zelensky was begging him for the war to stop. And I think that's what he's trying to angle at. But this war is not going the way Russia wanted it to, thankfully. And the inevitability is that they're at a stalemate, and I think that's where it's going to stay. And unfortunately, we're going to have to keep supplying weapons. It's going to cost us money. So I'm very, very happy that Trump got the EU to pick up the tab, and also we're going to be paid back for the weapons, and we're being paid back for them. We're not giving them as free gifts anymore from taxpayers. So Trump promised that when he campaigned, and he's keeping his promise. But this is very dangerous because, like I was just saying, if Trump goes ahead and imposes severe sanctions on any country that trades with Russia, that's going to hurt our relations with India and countries that do buy oil from Russia that we want as allies. So this is a very bold, risky thing, and Trump's only going to do it if he has to, because that could backfire. India is the second largest country in the world. They make a lot of stuff, and they have tried to keep us out of their markets as much as possible. So, very complicated business, my friends. Very complicated. So Trump is only going to issue that, because once he does it, there's no reversing it. It's done. And then there'll be nothing to bargain with Putin with. Nothing. This is being used as leverage to get Putin to the peace talks and to agree to peace once his financial people have it explained to them and explain to Putin what will happen if Trump does these tariffs. These aren't the same kind of tariffs and the same kind of sanctions that they've had before. This will be crippling to Russia because now it is going to increase the tariffs on China and India if they buy energy from Russia. And that could start a tariff war. That's very dangerous. But what do we do? What other options are there? We're not going to put troops on the ground to fight Russia. You know, you get North Koreans fighting with Russia. China has some support for Russia. I mean, this could get ugly very quickly. Very quickly. Let me put it to you this way. Even with old world technology, it went from 1938 to 1941 where the entire world was at war. 3 years. That's all it took. Several years before that, building up. But when it blew up fast. And so did World War I. That had been building up for a while, and then it blew up. So these things could get dangerous very quickly. Korean War, that's another example. That was supposed to just be an easy police action by the United States protecting South Korea from North Korea. So it started out, we were fighting North Koreans and we were beating them back. They were losing. This wasn't going to last long at all. This was just a police action. Well, nobody knew China was going to enter it. All of a sudden you were fighting more Chinese than you were North Koreans. And we got beaten back almost off the peninsula. Completely surprised by it. So don't underestimate China. They're a lot like Russia is. Their military tactic is to throw men at the problem. So let's say you have a normal battle where 5,000 people would get killed. Well, China would be willing to sacrifice 30,000 people to win the battle. And, you know, we're not going to do that. So they have an advantage like that. They don't care about anything except winning and power and world domination. So we got some big problems up ahead potentially. And Trump doesn't want to unleash those tariffs or sanctions through tariffs, because we'll be tariffing our allies. That's the thing. We don't want to have India as an enemy also. I don't think it would get that bad, but it is possible. And they are a nuclear power. They were going to go to war with Pakistan. India for a while was having war with Kashmir. You can look that up as well. So they have a propensity to go to war, that country does. Most of India had been conquered by Britain, for example, and they revolted, kicked Britain out. They killed a lot of British people. They did not screw around with that. So, very important to remember history and to learn by it. You have to be very careful, because once Trump does that, it's not going to be undone. And that's really the issue. That's like a last resort. And India is not going to like it, and neither is China. Now, strategic advantages that we have against Russia as far as nukes go is we have some really good nuclear submarines. Russia's nuclear submarine fleet is not what it used to be. They haven't had the money to maintain all that stuff. And right now, Russia's economy is feeling the war. They're having high inflation, and a lot of people are being killed. So public sentiment, if it hasn't already, is about to change. Because the longer this goes on, people are going to become war weary when their cousin's dead, their husband has 2 legs missing, etc., and so on. It's going to get ugly. And but I'm not hearing about Russians protesting. And they consider Ukraine being right there with missiles pointed at Russia as a threat. And that is a threat that is vindicated by Zelensky launching missiles and drones into Russian territory. That'd be the equivalent of people launching weapons from Mexico into Texas. That would piss off everybody in this country. So I really feel that was a mistake. And I understand Ukraine feels they had to do that because they're trying to destroy some of Russia's infrastructure they're using for war. But don't underestimate the psychological value of something like that. There's probably a lot slimmer chance that Russians will be against this war because they did that. You can't do that and kill civilian Russians in apartment buildings and things like that. So, and expect the Russians to want their government to stop the war. It's just not going to work that way. Wouldn't work that way with us. I think all of us would be pissed off if that happened, regardless on who started the war or who didn't. So, kind of interesting stuff if you think about it. So anyway, I turn the camera around, give my final thoughts. First of all, I want to thank you for walking with me. That's important to me. And for today's walk, I wanted to walk on the Bates College campus. I did that once last year. That was fun. I'd have to leave my firearm at home to do that. I just didn't feel like doing that today. So maybe someday I will, but the last time I did, we actually got to see osprey diving into the pond and coming up with a fish. I actually caught one doing that on video. If that video's still there, it's watchable. But with the 360 camera, that would be an excellent shot. So I wanted to go back there and get some cool video. They got a lot of cool buildings on campus, a lot of cool stuff, and they don't mind when the public walks around on it. They just don't allow guns on it. So I'd have to leave my gun at home. And that's really why I didn't go today, because I feel naked without it. I don't know what to say. Anyways, we'll talk to you guys later. Thank you very much for walking with me. God bless you. Say a prayer for Trump and the country. And I don't know, we'll just see what happens. But anyway, stay American, stay free, enjoy liberty, and we'll see you on the next walk, my friends, on my Make America Healthy Again video series. See you soon, everybody. Bye-bye.